Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. Today we're jumping into ABM number 3. We are talking about account-based marketing, and today in the third part of this series, we're going to talk about the actual tactics that you can take as an organization, especially from the sales and marketing side of this. I'm going to have Adel once again run through what we can do and how she's approaching this from the marketing side. At the end, I will jump in with a couple of ways I look at this from the sales perspective as well. So Adel, I'm going to let you take this away.
Sounds great. So let's get started with this is the nitty gritty, where the rubber meets the road. And this can be the really fun and exciting part, but it also is, it's a lot of work. So we want to start with a good way to think about this from a business perspective is that there's 3 levels to the types of ABM in practice. So you really start at the bottom of the pyramid with your base, and that is your one-to-many ABM. And that's kind of starting with for example, for Domain, we know that we work with professional services. So all of our messaging on our website, all of our Facebook messaging, all of our LinkedIn messaging, everything for our blog articles is aimed at professional services. We are a B2B business. That is the light personalization that you have to aim at your target audience. And this is the broadest net that you're going to cast, and this is not that much different from what you would do traditionally. The point here, though, is that you don't spend a ton of time or a ton of money on this necessarily. This is your brand building where you're just getting some information out there in front of folks. You would expect that this is where you can collect leads for like emails for a newsletter or for possible interest. But more than likely, if you're a B2B business that's selling a service that requires a lot of conversations and commitment like we do, you're likely not going to see new business come just from doing this. You need to do more than just this because people can't get to know you well enough in order to make a buying decision from that kind of content. So the next level is this one to few. And this is where you are starting to hone in on those target accounts. For us, that's about 300 to 400 companies where we're saying these are people that we have looked at their employee count, their revenue, their location, their website. We've looked at them and said, we think that you would be a good fit for us. We don't know for sure, and those are definitely not all of the indicators that you need in order to determine if they're a good fit for a domain, but we've seen enough for us to say, okay, we like you. So those folks, we want to make sure that we get in front of their eyes. So we're going to get their employees as a part of an audience on Facebook. We're going to get their companies as part of an audience on LinkedIn. And we're going to put paid dollars behind these folks in order to make sure that we're actually getting our content in front of them. And then we're also going to pick the content that we want to go in front of them to make sure that it's it has more personalization. It's aimed at them for the buying process, as well as for the industry that they may be part of. So, for example, we tend to focus on law firms. So, to have some legal specific content for those people who are part of law firms or staffing firms or financial services. So, this is where you're saying, okay, I want to actually commit to these people, and I want to make sure that I'm spending some money to get in front of them, not waiting for them to come to my Facebook page or search for me on Google. I want to be out there in front of them from the get-go, so that when they do go to make a decision about an IT provider, I'm there. They know me already. So that's the one where a lot of folks tend, this level is a little bit harder because it requires some more work. It requires understanding these social platforms and how to build the audiences. It requires list building, using a great tool like Zoom Info, those kinds of things that a lot of times companies aren't necessarily willing to invest in order to get those audiences. But if you do it right, you can guarantee that your content is getting in front of the exact people that you want to be your clients. And then the last level is this one-to-one ABM. And this is where your sales folks really come in and can start to build that relationship. This is having them target, they have 5 to 50 accounts on here. So pick out those top 25 of the one to few list that you have, your target accounts, and have your sales folks stalk them on LinkedIn. Have them start commenting on their post and engaging with their CEOs or their decision maker, the CFO. Invite them to events personally. You can do gifts to catch their attention, some special mailers that will show up on their doorstep, those kinds of things where you're willing to really spend some money and some time in order to build a relationship, because these are the folks that you definitely want to be on your side of the table. And this doesn't necessarily have to be folks who will be your clients, though that is very obviously the end goal. But it can also be people in your community, your center of influences, that will be able to connect you with other people who will do business with you. So this can serve two purposes and can really provide a lot of synergies for sales and marketing. This is where it comes together, because marketing can identify for sales, these people are really, really interested or really, really good prospects for us. And it helps it helps marketing out from the sales perspective, because then you can start to engage with them on social media and have more personalization, sending emails, calling them, and really elevating that touch, the very, very high touch, so that people are far more engaged, and almost to the point where when they go look for IT services, they're like, well, of course I have to pick domain because I have such a relationship already. How could I not? So it really goes from, it's not, the big thing to remember in all of this is that it's not all levels are for everybody, and you do need to have all three levels. So that's the part that takes strategy, and it takes time, and it takes a good CRM. It takes a good process to make sure that you've clearly identified the activity that should go on each level, the amount of spend that you should have on each level, and then also the people that should be in each of those levels. And so it does require a lot of coordination, because you can't just willy-nilly throw things around. You need to think about how you're spending your time and your energy, because it is a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into this, and you can't just go do everything. You need to prioritize what you spend your time on.
Great overview. I was thinking through this as you were walking through this, like the questions that I would potentially ask. But I think the best is just to maybe even give an example of this strategy working really well. So in the middle of COVID-19, back I think in April I'm pretty sure it was April. COVID hit around March.
March.
I think it was, yeah, I think it was April, May. We closed.
Lost track of time.
Yeah, we closed the law firm, and the law firm was in our perfect geo. It's the right size. They were having all the struggles that we could help solve. And the way we closed it was multiple. We were referred in from a past client, which was nice. But everybody knows that that doesn't get the job done nowadays either. That's not the only thing. It's a nice starting point. And in our first meeting with the managing partner, um, I knew that I could tell, as Adel mentioned, in the account-based sales and at the 5 to 50 accounts, this had been somebody we had identified 6 to 9 months prior to them
Yes.
reaching out. We didn't even know we had a mutual connection, which happened to be a paralegal that worked at another firm that ended up joining this firm. So when we found that out, but prior to that, they were already on our list. So we'd been following them and engaging them with them. And I could tell just by the way the firm acted on social media that social media was a big part of their game. And they happened to do family law, so divorces, prenups, custody, all that kind of stuff. So I get that it's a great place for them to be as well.
Yeah.
So they had, you could tell they had just a different approach to social media. So I started engaging, started liking posts, making a comment, congratulating people on their work anniversaries, whatnot. And we have this first meeting, and we go through the whole, standard thing: problems, issues, how do we deliver services, blah, 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 blah. We get to the end, and I was like, I said to the managing partner, I was like, hey, I just have an interesting question for you that's completely irrelevant to technology. You guys seem to have a really good presence on social media. She goes, oh, that's an interesting question. I was like, so I just wanted to know how you think about it and what's your angle and everything like that. She goes, that's a really interesting question. How did you, like, something along the lines of how did you start following me? Like, why did you start following me?
Yeah.
And I just looked at her, dead honest, right next to me, and said, I knew you were going to be a client of ours. And she hadn't signed up for anything. This was the first meeting. She had no idea who I was, but she knew that I knew I wanted them as a client, and I had been engaging with them. And that, I think, eventually did. And then the deal stalled, to be honest with you. We did a technology audit, COVID had, what's going on? Another provider is brought into the situation as a resource. It pauses, but I do not stop commenting and liking things as if nothing has changed. And I think that helped seal the deal and move this over the line. So a very interesting play at the top of that triangle of when sales is focused on a certain account or limited accounts and they're not all over the place, you can spend that time and give that ideal client the right thing. And they had to spend, I think, 2 times more with us to get the result they wanted.
Yep. And that really, like, the one-to-one is really, that crosses over into the sales process. That's how you even move deals along the pipeline. Those same tactics that you use in order to even get a conversation at the table are the same things that you're going to use as you are having the conversation with them in order to build that relationship, so that they feel connected with you and almost obligated to buy because they have so much of a relationship with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think there's many out there doing this because they can't spend the time and attention to do it. It is demanding, but it's demanding to the point of, like, if you've done it right and you've set up, here's, say we have 3 reps, sales reps, a marketing team of 4 or 5, and we know who the contacts at, let's say there's 3 contacts per those 300 accounts. So that's 900 contacts. And we as a marketing team know the pieces of content they need to digest to be able to start to make this change over time. And we're dealing with a world where there's one, in an industry where there's 1, 2, and 3 year contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So most of this does not happen overnight, but we can educate along the way and hopefully be the one they reach out to, which it usually is. We can be transparent, but if you take that for a sales rep and you boil it down to about 50 accounts, 60 accounts, they can then spend the time on a quarterly basis to constantly educate and touch base and stay on top of, technology changes, impacts on businesses, economic conditions, and what that means. And if I'm coming at you, I like to do it as like, we're all buyers, right? We all buy different
Mm-hmm.
things. I buy softwares. We buy ads. We buy all different kinds of things, right? If I like to look at it as, what's the experience I want as a buyer?
Yep. Yep.
Who do I want to buy from? I
Yep.
want to be buying from somebody who's not nagging me, but who is constantly updating me on the changes, things to think about, considerations. And I may not always be engaged with them. I may not always respond, but I like that piece of content
Yep.
or whatnot. And when I'm ready to make that decision to change, I know who I'm going to.
Yes, exactly. It's the mentality of like, you feel the folks who really get you on social media or through their advertising or through their emails are the folks that feel like they're reading your mind. They're answering the questions that you are going to ask when you go by. So, and that's, again, that comes back to the collaboration between sales and marketing. If marketing knows the questions that sales is getting asked in the buying process, marketing can answer those questions through the content that they're putting out to the one-to-many and the one-to-few, so that the sales folks aren't getting those buyer questions because they've already been answered. And that then just makes it so much easier. But it does take a lot of work, and it takes a flip in mentality, which once you've flipped the mentality in your organization where sales is super focused on these 50 accounts and marketing is the one that is doing the qualifying and really bringing that in, it frees up sales to be able to focus their energy on those accounts. But that is a flip for a lot of organizations, and there's going to be some pain in doing that, and it's going to take some extra work in order to kind of flip that model of who is determining those 50 accounts, who's determining those 250 accounts that we're going to focus on. So it's possible, but it's definitely a lot of work to get there.
Exactly. And I guess we'll end on the note of everybody likes to be courted. I want to be wanted.
Yep.
And to know that I was wanted, to know that somebody took the time and energy to pick me, like my organization was the fit for them and not the person next door, literally not the person down the hallway in this office building. That can make the difference.
Yep.
That time, I would even say that time and energy and attention, because they know it's happening, they may not consciously know it's happening. They may be not outrightly told, like I told this managing partner, that it's happening. But they'll feel it. They'll get that feeling, and they're going to be willing to pay more for that feeling because they feel like they're going to get the right result.
Yep.
So,
it's building that relationship.
Yeah, that is part 3 of the ABM. I think we're going to take a pause on ABM going forward. But if this was valuable, if you'd like to learn more, Adel and I are here as a resource. This is fully implemented at Domain Computer Services across marketing and sales. We have our target accounts. If you want to know if you're on our target account list, I'd be happy to tell you. But no, seriously,
or if you want to be on it, tell us.
We've helped companies with data and accessing data. We've made a big investment in that. So if you need some help in that area, we can definitely help you with the investment in zeroing in on who should you be targeting. And the other cool thing about it, Adel, on this, I'm thinking too, is even sole proprietors, right? Like small shops, owner-led sales, people that still own their own business but are doing great work. this is a better method for you than everything else than there. Like, hey, here's 25 people I think I can really help. And I'm the owner of the business. Let me just call you up. Let me send you some stuff. And maybe we can work together. Maybe we can have lunch. It's just doing business kind of the old school way. And yes, are large organizations doing this? Absolutely. And they're doing it at the enterprise level when there's 16 people involved in the decision-making process for their $200,000 software. Absolutely. But this boils all the way down to a sole proprietor saying, taking the time to say, I want these 25 accounts would be helpful. If I got 3 of them this year, my business would double. That's big impact, and it can be done.
It really is just getting away from the fear of that I'm not going to get new business, the fear that my product is not good for anyone, and going back to, I can build relationships with these people. Let me build relationships with them. In this information age, with all of this stuff coming at you, it comes back to relationships. It really does. So stop going for everybody and pick somebody.
Yeah, awesome. We will end there. Thank you, Adel, for your time, and I'll see you again soon.
See ya.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.